Coming up on Talk is Cheap, we're going to look at Project Horizon, the 1959 plan to build a base on the moon. Up next on Talk is Cheap. Welcome to Talk is Cheap, where cheap is talk and talk is cheap. I'm Dan Hofeld. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. And to my left is none other than everybody's favorite person, Pete Hallblive.
I have feelings.
Oh, you're being social justice warrior.
you were dancing, so I wanted to do the robot.
Oh.
You know. Beep, boop, beep, beep. Does not compute. Beep. Sorry.
The Office, Steve Carell.
Yep.
Good show.
I love it.
I'm actually rewatching that. I'm in the middle of it. I think I'm on season 4 again.
What I find the funniest about The Office is that season 1, Steve Carell has like really thinning hair. And then come season 2, when it was a success, he had some hair work.
Well,
done
no, they had I looked into this because there was a couple of
really?
YouTube videos analyzing this.
Yep.
He
was
was
serious. Awesome.
Yeah, because the first season they were really basing it off that British version,
Yep.
and he was kind of an asshole.
Yep.
But they're like, we need people to like this guy, and that's when they changed it, and it really made a big difference.
And they gave him hair then, or
well, he just wore his hair different.
Really?
Because it was slicked back, so it looks thin.
I'm going to look at it again, but it sure seemed like he went to like Hair Club for Men or something between season 1 and season 2, you know. So
it could be.
Anyway,
I won't debate that issue.
And he was a little huskier in season 1 too, so I think he got himself a personal trainer.
But yeah, that's a good point. Like shows like that are so good, and then are we going to take that away because something might be racist that they say, even though we all know it in our heads?
Well, I could. Yeah, I don't know. As long as South Park is still being played, I think The Office is all right. So, Dano, military base on the moon. Not the first time we've heard about this, though, have we? But this is
huge. Like, evidently, you said you heard about this before.
I've heard of it. I've never really looked into it.
Do you remember where you heard it from?
Oh, God, years and years ago when we were talking about bases on the moon. You know, and
it must have came up in
it must have, as I was,
because I never remember us touching on it at all.
No, we never really mentioned it, but I do. It rings a bell with me because it just does. I don't know.
Oh yes.
So the way I discovered it, I am reading William Tompkins' book. Now remember, William Tompkins he worked on the Solar Warden project. He was building these ships for the Solar Warden space fleet.
Yep.
He was in charge of drawing these. He did like these CAD sketches or whatever, so they can start getting ideas on where to put things, and he built these. Granted, I wish there was a little more evidence for his stuff, and that a viewer has asked me to do a show on him, but at this point I don't really feel comfortable doing it, because if he was in charge of this, couldn't he have like a blueprint of this kilometer-long ship that he could have took a picture of? Well, he probably wouldn't have had the technology to take a picture of it back then, but something like he could redo it from memory. Like, here's the bathroom, here's this. Instead, we get this like kid's sketch of a spaceship, which, what's that?
Yeah, right. So, and you'd think if he was a designer like that just from first blush, that his hand drawing skills would be very sophisticated, because a lot of those folks, you know, especially in the old days, did all engineering drawings by hand and stuff, you know, so you'd think that, you know, that you'd do it.
You want the board?
Yeah, I do.
You were making moves on me all.
I keep fucking, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No onions.
So I dropped an F-bomb earlier.
I don't even think I care anymore. If it offends somebody, I'm too bad.
8 inches.
8 inches works. I wish I was 8 inches.
Source.
So he made this book. I'm reading. I'm in the middle of it right now, and the book itself kind of goes left and right. I would just wish it was. It's all over the place. But one part that was really interesting to me is when he was working on these craft. He said these extraterrestrials working closely with him about these, and believe it or not, they're pretty hot women.
Oh yeah.
Extra like alien hot women?
Yeah, like Nordic Like we always say, they're just hot Nordics and everybody's.
Yeah.
He said-
The Swedish bikini team, right? And that sort of stuff.
So he was like doing this stuff, and they were getting put like constantly. There were these hot ass secretaries.
Oh yeah, that sounds good.
Exactly. And then they would keep like pushing him directions with like, hey, you should do this or do that. So very interesting.
Really?
And then there was some sexual ritual stuff, which does
Think
that.
you can handle that?
When we
Sorry.
when we
I
talked
gotta
about
step away.
when we talked about the stuff going on in Hollywood, here's another guy talking about it. Before it was known.
Mhm.
This dark stuff behind rooms, and it was crazy, some of the stuff that was going on, but I digress. So Project Horizon, that's where I heard about it. He brought up Project Horizon in that book, and I'm like, wow, there was a project to actually see how this works to build a base on the moon. Well, I want to find out more about this, so here we go.
Yep. Awesome. We're looking for it.
So again, this was in 1959. It was a study to determine the feasibility of constructing a scientific military base on the moon. And let's remember here, folks, Sputnik satellite from the Soviet Union launched in 1957. And then for reference, NASA was established in 1958.
So this is 1 year after NASA was established. Before we even launched a rocket in the air, like as one of these like outer space rockets. When were the Apollo missions? I don't know offhand.
That didn't start until after Kennedy's 69, right?
Right? Yeah, because we got to the moon in '69.
Oh, yeah. So
Apollo was before that. So we're talking, multiple years before we even started flinging things towards space. They were talking about building a base on the moon, almost like they knew something at the time, right?
yeah, they when you got the Soviet Union and they were launching Sputnik, it's like, oh, they're doing that. We better get ahead of the game here.
Yep. So let's make a plan to build a base on the moon.
And then actually it gets laid out in this manual that I'll share up here in a minute.
Awesome.
So the responsibility for the space programs before NASA was on the Army, Navy, and Air Force at that time. And then it did move to NASA. On June 8th, 1959, the Army Ballistic Missile Agency produced for the Army a report titled Project Horizon, a U.S. Army study for the establishment of a lunar base outpost. Now, on screen here, this is volume 1. There's 2 volumes. So volume 1 is the summary and supporting considerations. And volume 2 here is technical considerations and plans. These are like really thought out. For those listening on the audio podcast, there's pages and pages and pages of stuff.
I mean, even the cover
How to lay
page
this
has
out.
got nice artwork, and it's got the fonts and stuff. 2 different types of fonts. It's got the
Which is pretty big for, when they're doing all this by hand back in the day.
which kind of almost makes me a little question it.
So I want to read this proposal requirement here. I have to enlarge this a little bit. Okay, this is a bit of a run-on sentence, so bear with me, folks. There is a requirement for a manned military outpost on the moon. The lunar outpost is required to develop and protect potential United States interest on the moon, to develop techniques in moon-based surveillance of the Earth and space, in communications relay, and in operations on the surface of the moon, to serve as a base for exploration of the moon, for further exploration into space, and for military operations on the moon if required, and to support scientific investigations on the moon.
Wow, there's a couple nuggets in there, Dan. Protect potential United States interests on the moon, and that's interest. What's our interest on the moon, right? And then military operations on the moon if required.
Bing, bing.
Oh, yep. There it is. Yep.
8 inches.
8 inches.
So that one really stands out to me. Like, if required military operations, who would they be military operating against on the moon?
So actually, yeah, this is going to come up. Bear with me on
And
this.
they said on the moon, not from the moon, but on the moon. So they're going to fight somebody on the moon.
We'll get to that.
Okay, awesome. I'm getting ahead of ourselves here.
It also says here it should be designed to be self-sufficient for as long as possible without outside support. So they do really want a truly self-sustaining base up there where you really wouldn't have to supply it, When you think about the moon, we're told it can get to be like negative 200 to positive 200.
Yeah, right. It's a huge swing.
You got to wonder if that's believable, but I guess that's what they say. I'm not no scientist, I guess, or astrophysicist, whatever they call them nowadays.
Right.
Okay, so this part here makes me think about the Corey Good stuff, because they were talking about using holes in caves to put some of these bases in.
Oh,
like, you know,
covered and sealed.
Even lava tubes that they talked about. Now, actually, the news has admitted that recently, that they were going to think about doing that, even though they already have it up there, folks. But that's a side issue.
Well, right. That's what they do, is they disclose something they've already had in place and say, oh, look at how wonderful we are when we put our minds to it, and look what we can do. And it's been established for decades.
We got the moon here laid out. This is all in the manual, of course, folks. Potential spots that they were thinking about landing and establish this base. You got to have that, you know, someplace. I believe it was actually towards the poles was better, because that way you're not shifting out of the sun and then getting that constant, like, not. This base is going to be established with solar panels. Yep. So if you're not going to have the sun, you're not going to be able to recharge those solar panels.
Yeah, you're going to have less extremes, fluctuations, I bet you, as well, with temperatures and stuff, and light.
Well, here's the mission. They had the idea of taking this vehicle, getting it up there, and then this was actually going to plow these rows into the ground, and then they could go ahead and start stacking these tubes in there, these modular tubes, and they can start piecing this base together. And that having it underground, you know, you're shielded from the sun rays.
Stuff, yep.
Yep. And lower them in there like so. And here is a side view.
And
of
10
it.
years later, they had equipment that could drill through mountains and make tunnels.
Oh, yeah.
That was in the late 60s, right? They were
boring
doing
machines, yeah.
Yeah, right? So
you got to wonder how heavy those are. Get one of them up there. And
it just takes a few more rocket trips. You
I bet
you assemble it when you get there.
Yeah, it's good. Yep. They already did it, so
yeah, it's up there. They have a really cool.
They got the airlock living quarters. They got the bunks laid out here for those listening on the podcast. These are blueprints. They even have the scale of it, so it's all thought out very, very well. The suits, now these were going to be really heavy at the time, because
is that guy wearing ice skates?
It does look like that, doesn't it? And then this is another thing they thought of too when they did this, because do we launch these rockets one out of the Earth, one at a time, straight to the moon, or do we get them out of the atmosphere, resupply from there, and then shoot them to the moon?
Like the International Space Station is a docking point, and then you go on from there. That would be beneficial if you needed to somehow switch vehicles, right?
This is actually the part of the plans for the nuclear power that they were going to think about establishing up there, which could have ramifications in itself. I know a lot of people are pro-nuclear, but I'm not myself.
Well, I guess if you're going to have a nuclear radiation leak, it's good to have it on the moon.
But I mean, it would be done. Like, if you're thinking like an asteroid hits it, or comet or something, like, it's done.
Well, as long as I don't know, as long as it doesn't blow up or something. So, basic outpost is only 12 people, so it's a little right angle. That must be those tubes they were burying, right? In that other graphic you showed.
Yep.
It's a little L-shaped right angle thing. It's got special storage and explosives area. It's got a chemical storage area too.
Yep, and then over here, these are the reactors. What do we got?
A, B, C, and D.
Yep, so they're different. They were going to have a smaller reactor first when they started up, and then they were going to bring a bigger one in when they needed it. Again, to get that smaller one just to get stuff going.
Yeah, you want your basic lights. And
they thought it was going to cost $6 billion to build this. Again, they wanted it to be self-sustained, house 10 to 20 personnel, and have it operational by December 1966. Again, solar and nuclear power.
Was a lot of money back then.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of money, but then they actually found out it was going to cost a lot more than that. So they were wrong in that.
Well, once you get the government involved, right, everything's going to quadruple. So that was based on the trip down to the
they
local
got those,
hardware store.
Those $200 hammers and whatever else.
$5,000 toilet seats and stuff.
So in 1964, they were going to do 40 Saturn launches, the Saturn rocket. And in January 1965, if the cargo delivery to the moon would begin. April 1965, first man landing by 2 men, and the buildup of construction phase would continue without interruption until the outpost was ready. And then in November 1966, outpost would be manned by a task force of 12 men. This program would have required a total of 61 Saturn A1 and 88 Saturn A2 launches up to November 1966. During this period, the rockets would transport some 220 tons of useful cargo to the moon. And then December 1966 through 1967, first operational year of the Lunar Outpost with a total of 64 launches scheduled. These would result in additional 120 tons of useful cargo.
So 66, 67, they can take about 2 tons of material up each trip they go. That's really not that much.
Get the stuff up there ahead of time with these rockets, and then send the 2 guys up there.
Yep.
And in the meantime, they have to live in their lunar lander while they're building this base.
Until they can get their quarters built.
Yep.
And all that,
And then start building it out from there. Man, talk about being on your own.
Yeah.
So this wasn't in the manual here, but it's worth mentioning because it's on the Wikipedia. So I don't know where they got this from, but I suppose it's worth mentioning because we were talking about defenses. So in the defenses, they were saying the base would be defended against Soviet overland attack by man-fired weapons, and they were going to use rockets and nuclear warheads and also have conventional claymore mines that could puncture pressure suits.
Well, I would think a regular claymore mine would do just fine against a pressure suit.
Maybe you could throw some nails in it.
I don't know. I just figured that you're familiar with the claymores, right? They're nasty. They're nasty stuff.
Oh, I use them in video games all the time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so you're familiar. That's nasty stuff. I don't think any spacesuit.
Well, they didn't want to kill them; they just wanted to puncture them.
Exactly.
I think that would kill them.
Well, the idea is to carry it on for a while. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
8 inches.
I think that by that statement, it implies that a regular claymore mine would not puncture a pressure
Well,
suit.
wait,
I'm
let's
guessing
think
that it
again.
would, but there might be other ways to.
Yeah, we're not thinking outside the box here. We don't know what you're on the moon, so you got gravity reduction, all this other stuff to deal with. Because that was the thing about these suits too. They look heavy and bulky, but they actually only up weighing a fraction of what they.
Oh yeah, once you get on there,
Yeah.
with less friction and stuff, your bullet just travels truer and further. It's got less friction, less gravity. I don't know, but maybe they're the ones with all the brains. They probably got even things better. Maybe they modify them in a sense that they make smaller bullets or smaller projectiles out of it or something. Who knows?
It says if our forces are already present and have a means of countering a landing or neutralizing any hostile force that has landed. I suppose they could think about an alien at some point, but at this time they were really worried about the Soviets, and that actually broke this down a lot in this manual of we got to get up there and get ourselves established before the Soviets do, because if they can get up to the moon, get established up there, how do we get to the moon? Because they could already defend the moon against us coming there. So if they can get up there, you're going to get that advantage. Here is an 8-point breakdown of all this, of what the purpose of this lunar outpost was. So number 1, it wanted to demonstrate the United States scientific leadership in outer space. Number 2, support scientific exploration and investigations. Number 3, extend and improve space reconnaissance, surveillance capabilities, and control of space. Number 4, extend and improve communications and serve as a communication relay station. Provide a basic supporting research laboratory for space research and development activity. Number 6, develop a stable low-gravity outpost for the use as a launch site for deep space exploration. Ooh, are they already doing that already? The LLC with Corey Good. Number 7, provide an opportunity for scientific exploration, development of space mapping and surveying systems. And number 8, provide an emergency staging area, rescue capability, or navigation aid for other space activity. 2 nuclear reactors would be located in pits for shielding and would be provided for power for operation of the preliminary quarters and the equipment used in construction for the permanent.
You get one of those reactors up there, boy, and you've got a power source. Think of what you can power. You know, oxygen generators, scrubbers, all that stuff.
What kind of pisses me off about some of this stuff, and they even mention it in this manual, I don't know if it's like there's a reason we're not doing it here, but they talk about if the moon's got water and ice and all this shit, we can use this to make oxygen and all this other stuff and
drinking water
and power stuff.
Yeah.
Why ain't we doing it here? Like, okay, is it too expensive?
Could very well be, but I think that technology is coming along. I mean, we can.
But they were talking about this in 1959.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Well, we can desalinize ocean water for drinking.
Yeah, that's pretty costly.
Right.
But I wonder if you couldn't use that for power.
Yeah, you split it and you got hydrogen. Oh, you take water, you split it up, you got oxygen to breathe and hydrogen to burn.
But yeah, you ain't making money off that.
Well,
so
that's the thing. That's the reason why we're still stuck with internal combustion engines. Is the people that established with the old technology control the power, so they don't want any of this
Exactly.
new stuff. So
We're just historians.
What happened to Project Horizon? Now, Horizon never progressed officially, folks. Horizon never progressed past the feasibility stage, being rejected by President Eisenhower.
didn't like it.
When primary responsibility for America's space program was transferred to the civilian agency NASA. Other things that happened, they had technological challenges. Again, it was considerably more expensive than what they initially anticipated. If it was a Manhattan Project scale, they say it could have worked, but it would have required a huge increase in government expenses on defense and all that other good stuff.
Which were there now 20 times worse than what it was. I should have just done it.
But yeah, the other thing too was the alarming. Everybody was alarmed about Sputnik, and that kind of dissipated at that point because it's like years and years go by, and we don't care anymore. And then all of a sudden, another thing here, they got the Vietnam War going on.
Yeah, and a bunch of up unrest back home, right?
That money, of course, has to go to war. You can't stick it into Project Horizon. And then finally, and most importantly, any future American military presence on the moon became an impossibility when the United States, Soviet Union, and United Kingdom signed an outer space treaty in 1967.
Whatever. That all of that stuff right there, Dan, it was what I would expect to hear from somebody that's covering something up, man.
That's the official way.
Well, and the government says so, Dan, so let's believe it.
There we go, man.
But it really makes you wonder because, again, when did Germany fall? Do you remember off the top of your head?
David Hasselhoff did a concert on the Berlin Wall as it was being crumbled. So 85, is that the right number? Like you're talking about East and West Germany being
Nazi Germany.
1945.
45?
They were defeated. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, this was after that. So
D-Day, June 6th, 1945 is when. Well, that's when we invaded. So it was a little after that. When was VE Day? I can't remember when VE Day, but 1945.
Oh, very good, because I fall asleep in history class.
It can happen.
I know no one wants to hear that, but it happens.
Yeah, you're doomed to repeat it, though. Just so you know.
But I don't know. I'm more knowledgeable than some other people, especially when they're. Never mind.
Yeah, well, you're self-taught.
I think my body instinctively knew it was kind of bullshit to some extent.
All fake.
That we were getting taught, but so yeah, this leads back to Hitler and the UFOs. So he had that stuff. They built that base, the LOC up there. Did they finally figure out, we already got this up there, let's scrap the project, bam, we're done.
Yep. Yeah,
Simple.
Maybe they struck a deal with the people that already had it up there, or they went ahead and did it anyway and just said, oh, no, sorry, not going to do it. Right?
Yeah, because the Nazis, you can go to type this in on, we'll do it right now. We'll do it live.
We'll do it live.
Type in Germany UFO or Nazi UFO, you're going to get something like this.
Yeah.
These were actually at least built. Now, the thing was, Hitler couldn't use these in the war because the thing was when he fired the guns, it made the craft unstable.
Yeah, you can see the two big, 50 cals coming out of the side of that or whatever that is. You start running some lead through that, inertia's going to be a little...
So to say they haven't experimented with this stuff is false. So there you have it. Interesting indeed.
It is.
Can't lie about everything.
But I think it progressed a lot more than we know, and they have.
You know,
so
if they were successful at this, the first thing they would do is scrap any official record of it, Dan. You know, that's it, because it's national security. Oh, national security. We can't let people know we got a base on the moon, so we're going to go ahead and say that this wasn't feasible, and Eisenhower scrapped it.
Yep.
Didn't Eisenhower meet with the aliens?
Yes, he did. So
So if he scrapped it, there was a good reason for it. Let's say he did scrap it. Why do we need to build a base here? We can just use the ones that the Greys have, right?
I'm trying to think of the date. I did that presentation. I want to say it was. Maybe I'll put it here for you guys. When he met the aliens at was it Edwards Air
Was
Force?
it 58 or 58 or it was in the 50s, right?
It might be. It slips my mind, but yeah, again, that's right around this time. Before this.
time.
So
all right, 1954. Eisenhower interrupted his vacation to go visit aliens.
54.
Yep.
Oh yeah. So why would he care? Like,
Well, he may be caught wind of this and said, "Why do we need to do that? There's already bases up there. Let's spend our money on covering up Sasquatch."
well, I guess to be fair, he only knew about the alien presence. He probably didn't know to what extent it was. But then maybe he got wind of it. You know,
He
we're
met
talking
with
about
aliens. I would assume the extent would
no.
be implied.
Yeah, we don't know what they
extent would
talked
be
about.
pretty secure.
And he did have a few meetings.
Well, yeah,
There's more than
just
one.
the fact that there's an alien landing a ship at Edwards Air Force Base would tell me that I would make that assumption that their presence is.
I think it was
extensive
Holloman
everywhere.
Air Force Base.
Was it
I get these
Holloman?
all screwed up. Whatever.
Well, there's some Edwards stuff, right, and some Holloman stuff.
Maybe it was bull. I don't know anymore. Sorry, folks. My brain's shot.
There's been a new phrase going around our house, Dan, and that when we remember something incorrectly or differently than one another, the excuse is we've been Mandela'd.
Come again.
Oh yeah, I use that to cop out sometimes too.
So at one point, maybe it was Edwards, and now it's Holloman, or vice versa. And you know what?
Good way to get around it.
Yeah. Damn it, Mandela'd again. We should coin that phrase and make T-shirts.
I'm sure it's already out there. Guaranteed.
People might think you're nuts.
Yeah, probably.
All right, folks, we'll wrap this up. I want to thank those listeners again over on the audio podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all of it, many others as well. That's probably the strongest platform for being uncensored. Again, we're on BitChute, the live streams. Everything is down into the description below. We appreciate the support. I want to say a special thanks to those Patreon supporters. I know there's two strong ones that have stuck with us. I love it.
Yeah, you guys rock. You guys are just the best.
And it adds up over time. You know, some people are, oh, you're only donating $1 or whatever, but you add that up over time, and then if you had multiples of those, it goes really quickly. But whatever. If you want to donate, it all helps. Much appreciated. That link is in the description as well. And I think we'll sign off. Dan Hofeld, Pete Hallbleib. Later.
Peace, folks.